All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everyone who has taken time out of their schedule to be with me tonight. Give me 1 second. I just need to. Okay. Let me see. All right. I'm not gonna mess with anything else. I have attention to be a perfectionist about certain things, and it's just not going all the way. So I want, and then I mess it up. It was going fine, but yeah. So, thank you so much for joining us in the room again with a special agenda. Everyone that took the time out of their busy schedules to join me tonight, I really appreciate it. And today, we're going to be saying to everybody whose children have graduated, or this is the end of the school year and you made it through, there was some hiccups, but you here. Woo! Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And we're going to be discussing getting ready for next year. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that's just what it is. But the special needs parents, if you're a part of my village, you know, if you know, you know. And for those of us who are just joining, and this is new, of you've been given the gift and the privilege of taking on new responsibilities, and you're a new caregiver, you adopted or have been gifted some children due to circumstances that you did not expect, um, or you are discovering that the things that your child does differently, you have been given new information. So now you know um, what's unique about them. And you're learning how to be of assistance to them and how to meet the world, how to help them. And I know that comes with so much happiness now that you know, and frustration now that you know. Because sometimes as parents, we internalize all the different things, and caregivers, we internalize all the different things that we may have done that left them behind, or if you're getting a late diagnosis rather than early. Sometimes there's some guilt associated with what could I have done differently. Was I working so much that I missed this? Did I not read to them enough? Um, what happened? Or we're assuming it's other things, or even possibly recognizing that there may be some genetic things that we now know what's happening. But being prepared helps so much. And knowing that you all are on a new journey or an old journey and you found your path, and now you know which direction you need to go. But you still need a map. Sometimes the road you thought you knew is now under construction. And if you like me, if they change the road, well, we got a problem. If it wasn't for GPS, I would never leave my house because I used to get lost so much. Oh my God. And the same thing kind of with this thing we call autism and ADHD. Having help and support is that GPS. Knowing where you need to go, or knowing that changes have happened, and knowing that there are who to talk to so that you can be directed in the right way and not be so lost, because it's going to happen. Know that you're going to know it's going to happen. But as a parent and the guide of your household, you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to pivot and helping them learn to. And the gag in the whole thing is our topic today. We're discussing how to help them, how to form your village, and planning and creating normality. When the truth is, they're not average, they're unique. So there is no normality. It's their normality, not normality based on what we know. As parents, sometimes we get caught up in worrying about what it looks like around us rather than understanding the only thing you need to worry about is a few feet at a time. Yes, you need to look down the road, but you need to worry about the space around you currently. And that space is the child or the adult that you're guiding. Because you can only guide them in the space that you're in at that moment. Yes, you need to see where you're going and you need to be able to plan for that. But you also need to cope with where you are while you're there. Being prepared to assist them means knowing what their triggers are, knowing how they communicate, and learning their way of adjusting. Because there's more than one way to get anything done. We all address things differently, even though we may be doing the same things. We all prepare different dinner differently. We all clean house differently. Our study habits, even when we're going to college, our routines may be different. We're working for one goal and one purpose, but how we go about it needs to suit what works for us. And we need to learn to make it okay for them to operate within a space that they process in and they're okay with it. I learned that the reason my daughter was having so many meltdowns was because I was trying to navigate in a way that would not bother other people, when I learned that the real issue was helping her find peace and that other people were capable of managing that without me creating an atmosphere of fear for her. I was creating anxiety for her. I was passing on what I had, which she was excited for. I never forget, she was in middle school. And what was happening was she wanted to be in a talent show. I had some anxiety. She was excited. So I was like, let's do it. Took her down. She tried out. She killed it. She was happy with it. And the day of the event, in true parent or parent fashion, I asked her the question, which for some people who aren't on the spectrum could probably send them more anxiety. But for her, it gave the opposite response, which I was so proud of her for not being fearful like me. But I asked her, I said, are you nervous? She said, no, I'm excited. And that being said, there were so many other things that I was worried that she would agitate someone else. It would make them upset. It would interrupt their day. So I was sending bad messages to other people, and they were actually going along with me as if they needed to not give her their phone number or not communicate with her in this way, rather than allowing her to process it and them interact and her be allowed to adapt. Would she call too many times? Possibly. But if you give her instructions and you all are communicating, she's quite capable of processing that. For her, what works best is being given a particular time and a particular date in which you're going to call or you're allowing her to call. Will that sometimes not work out? Absolutely, yes. But they have a way of managing that. There were certain family members like, oh, I didn't want her to get their number because they were super busy. And I thought this would be a problem. But because I did that, she was having meltdowns. And it was because she didn't trust that I had her best interest. When in truth, in some ways, I had my best interest in her behalf. That means you're always thinking and speaking on their behalf without giving them an opportunity for their own personal autonomy and allowing that person and them to cohesively communicate and it work out the way that they decide that it'll work out. There were a couple of people she called early, but they let her know that they were asleep and could they speak to her later. And I would make a suggestion. Let's try this, or how about this time? Rather than making concrete rules in which she didn't trust me because I was creating a negative atmosphere without even realizing that that was doing, which created an anxiety that I didn't know I was the one causing. So it's important to start realizing that their normality is important just as well as other people's are. It's important that we recognize them and allow them to speak their mind and their truth so that they know that they're heard, and that way you all can communicate effectively. It would be like if you were talking to someone and they spoke another language, but instead of trying to learn their language, you started making up words that they didn't understand because it wasn't a part of their language. You're just saying stuff and hoping that they understand when that like the words that you're using don't even exist in your communication. So we're trying to form another way for them to operate based on what we feel it should be. That's not reasonable. And yet sometimes as parents we do that. But it's important to know what you need to do for them. But moving forward, we're trying to adopt new things and get into new programs, and we're trying for that. But this is a book that will help a lot of new parents, autism in childhood, and for parents and care and carers of the newly diagnosed. That's really really important. And the other thing that we don't talk about a lot is that there are individuals that we're going to interact with that we've been given the gift of caring for that they've never been diagnosed. I've talked to different individuals who, for I guess very personal reasons, because sometimes people sadly believe that you would want them to experience what you're experiencing, which is the funniest thing and saddest thing to me ever. When you are not the authority on it, but you've experienced it so much you can see it. And many people not knowing what perversive developmental delay means. Pervasive, I'm sorry. Pervasive or developmental delay means. And that there are adults who were diagnosed, but the family didn't know what it meant and they never asked. So they didn't realize that they have an adult that really had been diagnosed as autistic. And now that you have the gift of being assistant to them or them navigating their life, they don't know that they're on the spectrum. And the spectrum is very vast and wide. Everybody on it are not in the same place. And people find it insulting to say high functioning and low functioning because we all function in the way that we function. We operate in things the way that we understand. So our day to day looks different, and sensory things look different. But getting to know means that it's more of a system. It's like trying to drive a car. The difference between an automatic and a stick shift. If you've ever had to try to learn to drive one and did not master it, you know what I mean. It's not easy. But if you try to drive one as you would one that's automatic, the frustration you will have because you're not going to get anywhere. So getting the information that you need, it may be late, but it's important. It is important to know when people become adults and that too. So newly diagnosed at any age is key to understanding who you need to communicate and what services are available. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to work or they won't be able to work. It doesn't mean that you will be on the mercy of the system and that people won't understand or they'll be in another in the wrong program and they won't get the kind of assistance or it will stifle their education. That's not what the um, purpose of knowing is. The purpose of knowing is so that you could understand how to better assist. Knowing is getting the manual that you need so that you have the instructions that you need, so you know how to correctly operate the system that you're in. But this is really important, and a lot of people don't know that they need it. And that is getting a clinician that has the proper training, a mental health clinician that's been trained in it's called a diagnostic mental health clinician, because some people may test them but may not be trained to diagnose. And some people don't know that even with testing, if you're not with someone who in that state clinic or office or that psychiatrist or psychologist isn't trained to diagnose that disorder, then you're at a great disadvantage because they're not trained, so they can't do it. And that's how so many people, particularly women, are underdiagnosed. There's so many signs that, and if people assume that, oh, this person is not behaving in a manner that I see other people would, well, there are so many people that have autism that you are unaware of because it doesn't always present the same. There, ergo, the term spectrum. Some of them, some colors you can only detect if the light hits it a certain way. And it looks different in another light. So situationally, depends on if they're in a position where they are comfortable or they're masking a lot. You may not recognize it. That doesn't mean they're not extremely intelligent. It means they may be uncomfortable in certain situations, environmentally, or with certain sounds, or so many different things. But that in no way means they won't have a wonderful and a successful life. In this book here, taking charge of treatment for your child with Asperger's, which also applies to people who have autism and other disabilities. In this particular book here, oh my God, the different things that are listed in it. And this book is by, this book is by Camilla Peltzer Elwood and D. Scott McLeod. And it just gives you so much information. I'm sure there have been several versions of this printed and reprinted. And it gives you so much information and resources of where you should go. So once you find out what's going on and what to expect, it also tells you I'm sorry. It also tells you who can be of assistance, what their roles are. And it provides you with so many tools. Just, and oh my God, what you can expect behaviorally, and understanding something that so many people don't recognize. And this is something that's not talked about a lot because a lot of people are afraid of having the information be given that it's a high possibility that there will be other mental health developments that come. And it's not for medication or lack thereof medication. There will be other things that may come. And being prepared for that, getting ahead of that. Because it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. It means that they operate differently. And learning how they operate means that you accept that and try to figure that out. Our children are a gift. And them being different doesn't mean that we should feel ashamed, upset, or fill our days and time with trying to change them to operate in which we feel that the world will only operate and understand them because of how things are traditionally done. We have to help them find what their superpower is, what their gift is, and celebrate who they are regularly. Because them communicating differently or missing some social cues also means there will be things that they'll pick up that nobody else did. There'll be things that they heard that no one else did. Things that they see and process that no one else did. Taking the time to communicate with your board and find out who within the school system can help you get the resources you need, who is accountable when things don't go the way that they need to have gone smoothly, making sure that there is a behavioral plan in place if that things start to present differently, in which it is not just a problem in which the class is suffering or the teacher is having some issues with your child, but making it easier for them, the child themselves, to process and not have a hard time themselves, because we're not just looking at it as trying to correct this child. We are trying to help them process daily so they can get the education that they need. Who to talk to if your child IEP don't you feel is not being processed properly. How to help them develop an IEP, even if what they've put in place has already been signed on. How many meetings can you have a year? Who can you include? How to help have all of this process and make sure that it's going the way it needs to go. All those things are key. What is everybody's role there? How are they interconnected? How are things handled if there is a disciplinary issue? All of those things are important. And if you are you getting ready to move, it's key to know that ahead of time and communicate with them before the school year starts. You don't have to wait. What to do if you find that the teacher that's been assigned to your child's program doesn't have the qualifications that you feel that they should, or for your class, for your child's class, for your student in particular, how to get another personal parapro for your child. What is the role of a parapro? Is it possible that you can ask for a teacher that has a master's special needs education? And the answer to this is yes. A lot of people don't know that. I didn't know until I knew. And that came out of desperation. My child just wasn't thriving within the educational program that they had in place for him. And I felt like they were just going to keep moving him on because of where they had him, how they had him diagnosed, that was perfectly acceptable. But to me, it wasn't, because it was more important that he have this information and learn these basic skills than for them to just move him on. So I asked. I asked for someone with a master's in education for special needs kids. And it was granted. Imagine my surprise. Because I wasn't complaining. But sometimes it can come across like that to parents. So it's important to let them know regularly a letter of appreciation. Even if you're not pleased with everything, it's important to pick out the things that you are pleased with. It's like telling someone, I really appreciate this meal, but I would like a little more because I'm starving. I was hungrier than everybody when I got here. And since this is delicious, you think I can get a little bit more? I won't even worry about taking home anything with me without like a second plate. Sometimes, if enough is not being served, a request for more It's not a threat. And letting them know that you need that for your child. It's okay to ask for extra services, but asking the right person is key. Because the people sometimes that we're asking may not be in the position of power to make any changes within it, but they may be able to provide you with who to talk to. They may not know how to get there, but they can tell you who does. So take heart. If this year didn't go well, but you're glad that it's over and you made it, y'all made it. Take heart for next year and be vigilant in making sure that you know if you pray about it, if you work towards it, if you don't give up, if you ask enough times, even if you're asking the wrong people, eventually you'll find out who you need to ask so that you can get the help that you need for your child. So you can help form the village that they need, not just today, but further down the road. Take heed to where you're at, but pay attention to where you're going. Have a great night. Thank you so much for joining me in the room with a special agenda. Good night.